Few figures encapsulate both the allure and the contradictions of the 1990s film industry like Nikki Tyler, born December 4, 1972 in Berkeley, California. As one of the defining stars of an era marked by shifting cultural attitudes toward erotica, Tyler's career and life story illuminate the complex intersections of sexual liberation, exploitation, fame, and personal agency. From her meteoric rise as Penthouse's December 1995 Pet of the Month and eventual Pet of the Year, to her celebrated performances with major film studios like Vivid, Wicked Pictures, and Adam and Eve, Tyler's trajectory offers a revealing lens on the entertainment industry's evolution during a pivotal decade. To fully grasp Nikki Tyler's significance, it is essential to place her within the broader historical, social, and cultural framework of the late 20th century. The 1990s represented a paradoxical period for the industry. VHS tapes and DVDs expanded distribution channels and audience reach, while conservative moral backlashes and new anti-campaigns attempted to curb its influence. This era also witnessed the rise of the mature star as a legitimate celebrity, a phenomenon that blurred lines between mainstream fame and entertainment. Stars like Jenna Jameson, who famously had an intimate off-screen relationship with Tyler, built crossover brands that ventured into publishing, merchandising, and even early internet entrepreneurship. Meanwhile, societal attitudes toward sex work and performers remain deeply conflicted, oscillating between moral panic and cultural fascination. Within this tension, Nikki Tyler's story stands as both emblematic of industry patterns and deeply personal in its deviations. Her marriage at 21 to a man working at a newspaper stand, her enduring romantic entanglements with women like Jameson, her quiet withdrawal from the limelight in the early 2000s, and her present-day life as a wife and mother living in California. Tyler's career is not just a footnote in film history. It is a microcosm of the shifting power dynamics, cultural taboos, and personal choices that define sex work and its representations. This argues that Nikki Tyler's career and personal narrative exemplify the contradictory realities of the film industry during the 1990s, a space of empowerment and exploitation, of celebrity and stigma, and of agency constrained by the powerful commercial and cultural forces that shaped the landscape. The 1990s marked a transformative era for entertainment, a time when technological innovation, shifting social mores, and aggressive marketing converged to create the modern star archetype. Nikki Tyler's ascent is inseparable from this context. After entering the industry in her early 20s, Tyler quickly attracted the attention of Penthouse magazine, which crowned her as its Pet of the Month in December 1995, and soon after elevated her to Pet of the Year. These designations were more than glossy titles. They were powerful branding tools that propelled models like Tyler into lucrative, exclusive contracts with high-profile production houses. Penthouse, alongside rival Playboy, wielded immense cultural clout during this period, shaping mainstream perceptions of eroticism and softcore. Penthouse pets were marketed as the girl next door turned glamorous sex symbol, a potent mixture of accessibility and unattainability that appealed to a wide male audience. For Tyler, this exposure laid the groundwork for exclusive deals with production giants like Vivid Entertainment and Wicked Pictures. These companies were pioneering a new kind of cinema, high-budget, narrative-driven films that aimed for crossover appeal and leveraged star power to attract loyal fan bases.
Tyler's success was partly due to her ability to embody the era's shifting beauty ideals, fresh-faced yet overtly sexual, soft-spoken yet commanding on screen. Her on-camera presence blended youthful innocence with an assertive sexuality that resonated with audiences navigating the contradictory messages of the 1990s sexual landscape. The same decade that gave rise to third-wave feminism, with its emphasis on reclaiming female sexuality, also saw the rise of increasingly explicit content, the normalization of consumption through video stores and eventually the internet, and debates over whether such industries liberated or exploited women. In this environment, Tyler's career represents both an opportunity seized and a script written by forces larger than any individual performer. Her carefully crafted image was at once her ticket to fame and a template imposed by an industry that demanded performers remain eternally youthful, desirable, and compliant with market tastes. For all the glamour and stardom, the industry was, and remains, an arena where performers are commodified and sexualized for mass consumption. Yet Tyler, like many of her contemporaries, was not simply a passive participant. Her contract with Vivid, one of the first studios to brand its actresses as Vivid Girls, gave her a measure of creative and financial security that earlier generations of performers rarely enjoyed. Within the constraints of an exploitative system, Tyler found ways to exercise agency, choosing roles, negotiating terms, and shaping her public persona. But this empowerment came at a cost, blurring her personal identity with a marketable sexual persona that audiences, and sometimes the industry itself, refused to separate from the real woman behind the stage name. One of the most compelling aspects of Nikki Tyler's story is her well-documented off-screen relationship with fellow star Jenna Jameson. Their romance was more than gossip fodder for industry insiders. It offers insight into how film performers navigate personal relationships in an environment defined by sexual performance. While Tyler was married to a man who worked at a newspaper stand, she maintained a lesbian relationship with Jameson, a connection that endured even as Jameson's fame eclipsed Tyler's and as Jameson became involved with Jay Gradina, her eventual husband and business partner. This entanglement highlights an underexplored facet of sex work, the emotional labor required to separate performative sex from genuine intimacy and the blurred boundaries that inevitably arise. For performers like Tyler, whose job was to simulate desire and passion for the camera, the question of what constituted real sexuality was complicated by professional demands and personal yearnings. Her relationship with Jameson reportedly included cohabitation and deep emotional ties, a stark contrast to the transactional, scripted encounters of her filmography. The industry has long sold fantasies of unbridled pleasure and uninhibited sexuality, yet the behind-the-scenes realities are often mundane, strictly choreographed, and shaped by economic imperatives rather than spontaneous lust. For Tyler and Jameson, forging a private romantic connection was both a rebellion against these constraints and a testament to the very human need for authentic intimacy, even in a world where sex is work. Their bond also underscores how the industry's heteronormative marketing shaped performers' public images. Lesbianism was profitable as a fetish for male audiences, but often marginalized or erased as an authentic aspect of a performer's identity. For Tyler, living openly with Jameson while still married complicates simplistic narratives of stars as mere objects of male desire. It demonstrates the ways in which performers crafted their own private worlds of affection, loyalty, and vulnerability, sometimes hidden in plain sight, sometimes clashing with the public fantasies that sustained their fame.
Yet this same closeness could not insulate Tyler from the harsh realities of an industry that prioritized novelty and constant reinvention. As Jameson's star rose, thanks to savvy self-promotion, business ventures, and crossover media appearances, Tyler's own prominence waned. By the early 2000s, she quietly exited the business, leaving behind a legacy inseparable from her intimate and professional entanglements. Her departure points to the emotional toll that fame and performative sexuality exact on those who live at the center of a fantasy machine that never stops demanding new faces, new stories, new taboos to break. If Nikki Tyler's rise and relationships illustrate the promise and paradox of stardom, her retirement and subsequent life choices reveal the limits of agency within an industry still grappling with deep contradictions. After her final film in 2003, Tyler stepped away from entertainment, retreating to a relatively private life with her husband and daughter in California, a decision that mirrored the paths of many performers who, after years of intense exposure and scrutiny, choose anonymity over continued fame. Her withdrawal speaks to an enduring dilemma for stars: the difficulty of transitioning out of an industry that commodifies their sexuality while often stigmatizing them for having participated in it. Unlike mainstream celebrities, whose fame can open doors to new ventures and social capital, performers frequently find their options constrained by the lingering cultural baggage of sex work. Despite the 1990s supposed sexual liberation and the feminist debates about empowering possibilities, stigma remained potent. Performers like Tyler often faced moralistic judgment, limited employment opportunities, and a society eager to consume their work but reluctant to accept them as complex individuals beyond it. This contradiction is at the heart of the film industry's promises and failures. On one hand, the 1990s boom offered performers unprecedented earning potential, visibility, and for some, the chance to leverage fame into entrepreneurial ventures. On the other, it was an industry rife with power imbalances, precarious working conditions, and limited long-term protections for the health, safety, and dignity of its talent. Tyler's decision to leave while still relatively young, to prioritize her family life, and to maintain a low profile can be read as an act of reclamation, an assertion of self beyond the persona of Nikki Tyler. But it also reflects the uneasy reality that, for many women, empowerment remains circumscribed by the industry's relentless commodification of their bodies and desires. For all the ways Tyler exerted control over her image and career, she was still bound by an industry that often viewed performers as disposable assets, to be replaced as soon as they ceased to conform to market demands. Her legacy, then, is not just one of erotic iconography, but also of survival. In stepping away and crafting a life centered on family and privacy, Tyler demonstrated a form of agency that, while quiet, is profoundly significant: the refusal to let an industry, a brand, or a fantasy dictate the totality of one's identity. Nikki Tyler's story is more than the sum of her screen credits or magazine covers. It is a window into the contradictions, possibilities, and costs of a cultural era that was remade as both a billion-dollar industry and a contested social terrain. Through her rise as a Penthouse pet and vivid contract star, her intimate and complex relationships with fellow performers like Jenna Jameson, and her eventual retreat from public life, Tyler's career illuminates the industry's double-edged promises of fame and autonomy. This video has argued that Tyler's life exemplifies the tensions at the heart of the 1990s, a moment of both expanding opportunities for women in entertainment and enduring structures of exploitation and stigma. Her legacy invites us to look beyond sensational headlines or moral panic and to see the real person behind the fantasy, a woman who navigated her sexuality, her work, and her private life on her own terms, within a system that too often sought to collapse all three into a marketable image. In reaffirming this perspective, we acknowledge the human stories that lie behind the spectacle of entertainment, stories of agency, contradiction, and resilience. Nikki Tyler's journey is not just a footnote in history, but a reminder that every performer is more than their screen persona, a person negotiating love, ambition, and selfhood in a world eager to reduce them to a fantasy. Her retreat into family life suggests that sometimes the most radical act for a star is not staying in the spotlight, but stepping out of it, reclaiming the privacy and dignity that the camera was never meant to capture. If there is a final thought to draw from Nikki Tyler's story, it is this: the next time we speak of the film industry and those who have shaped it, we owe them more than scandal and stigma. We owe them the recognition that their lives, like anyone's, are shaped by dreams, compromises, contradictions, and the enduring human desire to define oneself beyond the roles others script for us. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you'll be notified when we upload new videos. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.